Good morning. Today we are continuing with those percentages. We are doing CO34. I can use a tax to find the total cost. So our last objective was the discounts, the sale prices. So our total cost was getting smaller. Attention should be up here. Our last objective, the total cost was getting smaller. Today, we're putting tax onto things. So is our total cost going to get smaller or is it going to get bigger? Zelda? Bigger. When we tax stuff, that price goes up. So you might say, oh, I want to buy this video game for $20. I've got a 20 in my pocket. Perfect. But you go up to the register and all of a sudden it's not $20. It's more because they add a sales tax to it. So we need to know how much money we need in our pocket in order to buy it. So this is, again, real world stuff that we're getting into, stuff that we will use when we go out to the stores, when we go out to eat. And we say, oh, I want to go out with my friends and get some hot chocolate and maybe a muffin. I've got so much money. You have to make sure you factor in the tax that's going to be included on it. So we're going to find out how to do that. Something many people deal with nearly every day is tax. Why does something on the dollar menu at McDonald's cost more than $1? Because of tax. Tax is a percentage similar to a discount, but it increases the price rather than decreasing it. Here are some situations you may have encountered. You buy a picture frame for $5 and there is a 10% tax. What is the final price of the picture frame? You want to buy an iPod for $400 and oh my goodness, there's a 40% tax? I don't want to live wherever they're living to have a 40% tax. That's huge. But what would the final price of the iPod be? Or you buy a plot of land for $550 and there's a 20% tax. What is the final cost of the land? So as we saw in CO33, there are multiple ways we can answer the questions above. So remember, we found that price of the discount first and then subtracted it. Well, our first method is very similar. We're going to find that tax first, and then are we going to subtract it? What are we going to do, Hannah Mae? We're going to add it. So instead of the subtracting that we did in our last objective, we are going to be doing adding. So, but it's very similar. So if you felt comfortable with the last objective as we corrected it, and I heard some people say, oh, I got my answers right. Look at that. You're going to be pretty comfortable with today's because it's same math, just instead of subtracting, we will be adding. So let's look at that picture frame. It was 10% of $5. That's what our tax is. So just like yesterday, we changed that 10% into 0.10 of becomes multiply by that $5. So 0.1 or 0.10 times 5 is 0.50, so 50 cents. So we add that 50 cents onto that original cost of $5, and it becomes $5.50. For the iPod, it was 40% of the price of $400. So what math am I going to do? Zelda?
You're going to make the 40 into 0.40, and then you're going to multiply it by the 400.
And what does that become?
That becomes,
do you have your calculator? 0.4 times 400. Who's got a calculator up? Liam?
160.
160. So our tax on that $400 iPod is $160 in tax. That's why I said 40% tax. Holy Hannah, I don't want to have to pay that. That is a lot. 40% tax is a huge amount of tax. But what do we have to do next? 160 isn't my answer. how much is the total cost of thy iPod with a 40% tax? Connor,
Add 400 plus 150,
and what do I get, Connor?
560.
560 is my final cost. How would I solve the land problem? I want to buy a plot of land for $550 and there is a 20% tax. What calculation do I put there? Melanie,
0.2 times 550.
so that 20% is 0.2 times 550 gets me how much in tax? Bryn?
110.
Gets me $110 in tax. What is my second step? Because remember, this is 2 steps to this one. Jimena, what's the second step?
Add the 110 to
110 plus the 550, and that gets me $660 for that land. So that's the finding the tax first. Just like when we found the discount first, we subtracted the discount off. Finding the tax first, we add the tax onto the original amount. So now let's look at finding the final price directly. It's going to be very, very similar formula to what we used yesterday. Jimena?
it's actually 360.
Why would it be
60?
It's 550. So you mistakenly, I couldn't tell if you said 250 or you said 550, but our original price of the land is 550 plus the 110, so it should be 660. But I'm glad you asked about that. How we understand where we're going wrong. If we think about yesterday's formula for finding the discount directly, what do you think our formula is going to be for finding the tax directly? So you can look back at yesterday's objective and think about what change we're going to make to it. What do you think our new formula is? Madeline?
The original price times 100% plus 100%.
Yeah, so original price times that 100%, but instead of subtracting our percent, we are now adding it. So we're going to add that discount to the 100. So what that looks like is for our picture frame, it was $5. And then we have that 100% plus a tax of 10%. So we have 5 times 110%, which is the same as 5 times 1.10. Because we're over 100%, we have that 1 in the hundredths place. Or not in the hundredths place, sorry. We have that 1 in the ones place. So it would be 5 times 1.10. So we have that 110% is 1.10. What is 5 times 1.10? Lauren? That's how we get that $5.50. Same answer. Let's look at our iPod. We're going to make it a little simpler. I was writing a lot out, but I'm going to condense it down. We look at that iPod. Our original price was $400. We're going to do 100 plus that 40% of a tax. So we're going to have 1.40. Just like we had the 40 right here, 0.40. We're putting that 0.40 here. We're just adding a 1 in front of it. So 400 times 1.40. What is 400 times 1.40? Zelda?
560.
It is the exact same amount, 560. So it looks confusing up here But really, this is all we're doing. We're doing our original amount and then 1 point with our percent. Because when you add 100% plus 40%, 140 is 1.40. Okay, so think back to how we were converting those percentages into decimals. That last number has to be in that hundredths place. So 140% is 1.40. So that's all you have to put into your calculator. So look at our land. Our original amount was $550. What am I going to multiply that by? Melanie?
120. Because whenever you add 100.
Careful. It's 120%.
1.20.
So we want to change that into a decimal. So it'll be 1.2 or 1.20. We want to change the percent into the decimal. Do not forget that decimal point. It will make a very different answer. 1.2 versus 120. Big difference. So make sure you convert your percentage to a decimal point. What is 550 times 1.20? Zelda.
It's going to be 660.
It is going to be the same answer of 660. Just like with yesterday's objective, you can choose which method makes more sense for you. When I'm out at the store, sometimes I find the tax first and then I add it on. It works easier for me because a lot of times I can do that in my head or I just remember it easier. If you're understanding the formula 100 times that 100% plus the percent of the tax, you can most definitely do it that way. But if you're looking at that, I had some people saying, oh, this is complicated. This is too much. If you don't understand it, don't do it that way. Do it finding the tax first and just add the tax onto it. In the real world, that's the one I always resort to because I forget what the formula is. For the test, you can have a help sheet. You can write that formula. So if you want to do it where you're doing the original times that percent with the tax, write that formula on your help sheet and you can use that way. But just know, finding the tax first and adding that on, that's a perfectly fine way of doing it. So, just like our last objective page, we had a couple of questions on the bottom. Then we have our table, just like the last one. You're going to decide which method works for you as you're doing these. Show your work. Which method are you doing? Remember down here, you have all that workspace that you can do it. You have the page before, all that blank space right next to your work. You can use that backside blank space right next to the left of it. Then we have, you can use these methods outside the realm of taxes and percentages. You can also use these methods outside the realm of taxes and percentages are larger. That sentence doesn't quite make sense to me. But we are going to be doing the same concept, same objective to find our new amount, show your work. So when it says increase 80 by 20%, you're doing the same thing. It's just not in a word problem, it's not in the table. You're just increasing it by that amount, okay? Then on the bottom, it's that review, same type of review we had on our last objective. Show the two other forms, percentage, fraction, decimal. Remembering that when you're going to the fraction, 100 is our magic denominator number. Remembering that we simplify fractions down. Any questions on today's objective? Keep in mind that Khan Academy is due tomorrow night, Thursday night. Packet number 5 is due next week, Tuesday. So if you finish your math early, you are making sure Khan Academy is done. You're making sure to be working on your math packet. If you have practice work and retakes you want to do, retake day is Friday. So make sure you have your practice work done. Turn it in so I can correct it and give it back to you. If you have your math packet done by Friday, turn it in early so I can correct it and you can fix your mistakes trying to get that 100% on your math packet. If you are watching this at home, we hope you are well, and we hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day.